And now we have arrived to the ninth and final part of how to defend against the Mongols. Today we're going to be looking how other Mongols defended against Mongols. Mongol on Mongol action. So this will be exciting. And yeah, let's wrap this up, shall we? But first, if you want to watch the original video, the link is down in the description down below. It's always the first. And if you want to help me out in any way, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It would really help my small but humble channel grow, and I would appreciate it a lot. With that said, and now without any further ado, let's get to it, shall we? Let's see how other Mongols defended against the Mongols.
Although the Mongols fought countless enemies, none of the conflicts were as fierce as the ones against other Mongol polities. Let us begin with the Tuluid Civil War, the first and most important of the Mongol civil wars. Arik Buka and Kublai were younger brothers of Mungke, the last recognized great Khan of the United Empire who died in 1259, and both wished to succeed him. Arik was based in the old Mongol capital of Karakorum, located in the Orkhon Valley in Mongolia, while Kublai was based in Kaiping, a city he had constructed in today's Inner Mongolia. From this position, Kublai controlled access to Mongol-ruled northern China, while Arik had more support from other members of the imperial family for his claim as Great Khan. Kublai had more immediate practical advantages. Arik did not have access to large armies, while Kublai controlled many of the armies which had just been used in the war against the Song dynasty, leaving Kublai to start the war off with a tremendous advantage in manpower. Furthermore, Karakorum was reliant on a constant flow of grains and other food supplies to supplement its largely non-nomadic population. When war broke out, Kublai cut off Arik's access to food supplies from North China and invaded Mongolia, defeating Arik in battle in autumn 1260 and forcing Arik to abandon the untenable position at Karakorum in the face of Kublai's advance. For a conflict over who had the right to rule the Mongol Empire, making it clear Arik could not hold the imperial capital was a powerful symbolic move.
Yep.
Kublai's armies forced Arik to withdraw to the Yenisei River Valley. While the Yenisei is a comparatively rich agricultural region, with the cultivation of wheat, millet and barley going back millennia, it was insufficient against Arik's enemy. Arik was reduced to border raids and infighting with his own allies before a harsh winter eradicated his herd animals and forced his surrender by 1264. From the outset, Kublai was more willing to commit to all-out war against his brother. Arik appears, until quite late, to have been under the impression Kublai would recognize Arik's claim, giving Kublai a head start in preparing for war. Kublai's ability to bring the resources of Mongol-ruled China to bear against Arik, and thereby cut Karakorum off from supply, was the ultimate card in Kublai's favor. While the details of the battles between Arik and Kublai are sparse, Kublai's armies consistently had the better of the engagements, and Arik had far fewer troops to call upon. Kublai's advantages were beyond what Arik could muster. The defeat of Arik Buka was not the end of Kublai's troubles with his family members. With Karakorum rather exposed, Kublai permanently moved his capital to two cities, Kaiping in Inner Mongolia, renamed to Shangdu, and Dadu, also called Khanbalik, on the site of modern Beijing. The result, though, was that Kublai's control over much of Mongolia was tenuous and subject to raids from princes who continued to resist. Kaidu of the Ugadeid Khanate and his ally Duar of the Chagatai Khanate dominated Central Asia and raided Kublai's frontiers from the Tarim Basin to western Mongolia. A host of independent princes, largely sons of the previous great Khans Mungke, Arik Buka and Guyuk, held minor courts from Dzungaria, the Altai Mountains, to the Yenisei River Valley, switching from fighting each other to allying with Kaidu, to at times joining Kublai. In the far eastern part of Mongolia and in Manchuria, the descendants of Chinggis Khan's brothers also proved rebellious. Thus, throughout his efforts to complete his conquests in China and abroad, Kublai Khan had to send troops to deal with his cousins in Mongolia continuously. While none had the power to overthrow Kublai Khan, they could threaten his hold over Mongolia and other border regions. Kublai had to find ways to deal with almost annual attacks along a vast frontier. Around 1271, Kublai dispatched his sons, Nomakan and Kokachu, with a large army into Mongolia, pushing on to Al-Malik to drive back Kaidu, while another army pushed across the Silk Road cities of the Tarim Basin. By 1275, these gains had been reversed. Hoku, a son of Guyuk, succeeded in driving Kublai's armies from the Tarim Basin. Next year, a mutiny by the princes Shiregi and Tuk Timur in Mongolia resulted in Kublai's sons being captured and sent to the Golden Horde, where they spent the next decade. Then, Shiregi and Tuk Timur attacked Karakorum. However, the princes' fragile alliance soon frayed, and Shiregi and some of the other princes abandoned Tuk Timur to join Kublai.
Alright, I kind of find this era very interesting. It kind of gives me like Diadochi vibes, like, you know, the Mongol Empire, a great empire is unified, and then it just shatters and everyone starts fighting each other. I mean, granted, that happens a lot in history, it's not just a Diadochi thing. But, you know, I really find it very interesting, and just seeing the Mongols, like, fighting one another. So, yeah, I feel like what we saw a bit of it in part in the first season of the Mongols by Kings and Generals, though I would kind of like a more in-depth look at the civil wars between the Khanates and whatnot. I really feel like, I don't know, like it could be like a great Diadochi full series, you know, that Kings and Generals can do. But, still, I am at least glad he is touching on it, you know what I mean?
At the same time, Kublai sent a large response force under his star general, Bayan of the Ba'arin, and Tuktuka of the Baya'ut Kipchak. Both were experienced commanders, with Bayan the mastermind of the final conquest of the Song dynasty. Leading an army of horse archers, including 1,000 Kipchak warriors, they defeated Tuk Timur near Karakorum. Shiregi was also forced to execute his former ally Tuk Timur before being sent off to exile on an island off China's coast.
Wow.
Kublai was pleased with the performance of his generals, particularly Tuktuka, whose warriors became one of the key arms of his anti-Mongol defense. Parallel to the Mamluk sultanates in Egypt and India, Kublai felt the best way to deal with steppe horse archers in battle was better equipped horse archers. Tuktuka's family had been Kipchak lords before the Mongol conquest, and the Mongols recognized their military potential and dispersed them around the empire as frontline troops. Tuktuka's father Banduchek was assigned to Kublai's armies during his conquest of the Dali kingdom in Yunnan in the 1250s, and had proved their mettle again during the war against Arik Buka. The Mongols always sought to reward those who showed hereditary ability, and following the defeat of Shiregi, Tuktuka and his men were given promotions and vast tracts of land around Kublai's capital at Khanbalik. Further, Kipchak slaves and soldiers in Kublai's realm were assigned to Tuktuka's command. In 1286, they were formed into a regiment called the Kipchak Guard, consisting of a corps of various Turkic steppe warriors fighting from horseback, supplemented by Alans, Mongols, and thousands of former Song dynasty infantry and archers. The command of the Kipchak Guard was held by Tuktuka's descendants until the end of Mongol rule in China. Though one of several such guard units, the Kipchak Guard was by far the largest, richest, and most prestigious, and held tremendous influence in the Yuan realm.
Alright, it's really interesting seeing their rise, just by merit. That's one of the good things that the Mongols did, especially like Genghis Khan, allowing people to rise through merit. And I think that's such a great, you know, practice that they had. And I think most would agree that that's great, you know? I really like that solution. How do we beat horse archers? Get better horse archers. Ours are better than yours. Like, it's funny, but hey, it was effective, right?
Kipchak Guard was soon put to the test. In 1287, a revolt broke out in eastern Mongolia, led by Prince Nayan, a descendant of Chinggis Khan's youngest brother Temuge, with another revolt in Manchuria by Prince Kadan. Nayan overcame Kublai's commander Bayan of the Ba'arin, and it was feared that Nayan would coordinate with Kaidu and seize Mongolia. Kublai Khan, by this point in his early 70s, depressed, obese, gout-ridden, and nearing the end of his life.
And Kublai is very depressing figure, especially near the end of his life. Like, he kind of became like this figure that we follow through most of this series, and he's just not doing well. Man.
Roused himself for one more march. According to the Yuan Shi, Kublai was frustrated that his own Mongol troops showed hesitation to fight other Mongols. their tendency was to dismount and chat in Mongolian rather than fight. Kublai called upon the Kipchak Guard, who had no such issues and would be merciless. From a command post on the back of 4 elephants, Kublai Khan went on his final campaign.
Very great spectacle there. 4 elephants carrying... That's actually really cool.
Backed by the Kipchak Guard, while other Yuan armies blocked the advances of Kaidu and Kadan, preventing them from linking up with Nayan. Against the full might of Kublai Khan, Nayan was overcome. Amongst Kublai's units were top-of-the-line weaponry. A brigade of Koreans in his service apparently brought with them handheld gunpowder weapons, leading night assaults on some of Nayan's encampments. Nayan himself was defeated, captured, and executed, though some of his allies continued to resist for several years. Tuktuka was put to the task of reducing them too. After Kublai's death in 1294, his grandson Timur succeeded him as Great Khan, ruling under the name Uljeto Khan. Among the first things he did was richly reward Tuktuka and his son Junkur, and then send him to the frontiers to continue battling Kaidu and his allies. This consisted of repelling annual raids or launching their own expeditions into enemy territory west of the Altai. Tuktuka spent the rest of his life in Mongolia, dying there in 1297. His son Junkur inherited his position as commander of the Kipchak Guard. Under Timur Uljeto Khan, a more structured defense system was set up across the frontier. In a vast arc stretching from the original homeland of Chinggis Khan along the Onon-Kurlan rivers to the northern foothills of Tibet, a series of commanders were stationed with thousands of troops to respond to incursions. Timur Uljeto Khan put overall command under his brother Kamala in Karakoram. He also expanded a policy of his grandfather Kublai of sending vast numbers of Chinese laborers into the border regions and Karakoram to establish self-sufficient communities, expanding agriculture and crafts production to support these large frontier garrisons, and reduce some of the state burden in equipping and feeding them. Timur Uljeto Khan switched to an offensive stance after his son-in-law, Korguz, king of the Ungut, was captured and killed by Dua in 1298. A furious Timur Uljeto called upon the resources of his empire. While Kublai had continued to send invasion forces over the seas and into southeastern Asia until his final days, Timur Uljeto halted almost all other military activity and directed the might of the Yuan dynasty against Kaidu and Dua. He appointed his nephew, Kaishan, as overall commander of the Yuan forces in Mongolia, and provided him with a vast army backed by the Kipchak Guard under Junkur and his son El Timur. In early 1301, a series of battles were fought around Mount Tirjanggu south of the Altai Mountains over several days. During the fierce clashes, the outcome was inconclusive, and Kaishan fell back to Karakoram, Kaidu's troops harassing him the entire way and burning the pasture behind him. However, both Kaidu and Dua were injured in the battles, and Kaidu succumbed to his wounds soon after. Dua lost his interest in fighting against the great power of the Yuan dynasty. When rumour came a few years later of a threatened coordinated attack against the Chagatai Khanate by the other Khanates, Dua submitted to Timur Uljeto and invited the other Khanates to do the same. Over the course of 1304, the various Mongol Khanates all once again recognized the overlordship of the Great Khan, a recognition Timur's grandfather Kublai never achieved.
Dang, good on Timur, man. That's a pretty big move. He was very successful in that regard, right? Good on him.
As a part of this,
whenever you can create your
Dua and the Yuan divided the territories of the late Kaidu between them. Despite similar quality of troops and tactics, the Yuan dynasty was continually victorious in these wars. It was able to continually use its vast resources against its rivals.
Yeah, the Yuan, I think it's mainly their interesting situation at like Mongolia, and obviously just the resources of China at their disposal, that they are able to achieve such great success. You know, I really do feel like they had I really do feel like having those Chinese resources and manpower was godsend, you know what I mean?
setting up numerous garrisons to respond to incursions and showing greater unity of command, allowing it to bounce back from defeats when they occurred and bring its elite troops into play. Meanwhile, its enemies were reduced to hit-and-run tactics and plagued by infighting. While Yuan advances were halted in southeastern Asia and Japan against other Mongol troops, the Yuan were able to perform much better. Other strategies can be observed in the wars between the Ilkhanate in its conflicts with the Golden Horde and the Chagatai Khanate. The Ilkhanate and the Golden Horde first went to war almost concurrently with the Toluid Civil War. These battles were largely fought over the Caucasus Mountains, which the Golden Horde invaded repeatedly from the 1260s to the 1380s, hoping to seize them from the Ilkhanate and its successor states. Many of these battles were inconclusive, and the front line rarely shifted. The opinion of the written sources from the Ilkhanate and later is that while the Khans of the Golden Horde could field immense armies, the Ilkhanate troops were better equipped. In the narrower, uneven terrain of the Caucasus Mountains.
Again, that principle, how do we beat other horse archers? We just have better equipment. Simple in explanation, but in practice, you see the effectiveness of it, huh?
Better supply lines and equipment of the Ilkhanate troops could be maximized, though rarely do we have any precise details on the course of these battles. The Ilkhans often responded to these incursions personally, taking with them their keshig and most elite units to prevent the Golden Horde's horsemen from advancing too deeply. The Ilkhanate soldiers largely fought defensively, rarely pursuing their foes back into the steppes. In late 1262, Hulagu's son Abaka did just that, only to be lured into a trap by Bukha Khan and routed. While fleeing, Abaka crossed over the frozen Terek River, only to lose even more of his army when the ice broke underneath them. The shocking defeat soured the Ilkhanate on any further expeditions into Golden Horde territory. Following the end of the initial conflict, Hulagu's successor Abaka constructed a wall and ditch along the Kura River, and left a garrison there to defend it, ensuring it would slow down any Golden Horde advances long enough for the Ilkhan to respond in force. For its part, the Golden Horde left a large, permanent garrison in the steppes north of the Caucasus to prevent the Ilkhans from ever attempting to make that journey north again. The result was an effective stalemate. Both states were far too powerful to overcome the other or its defensive preparations. To the east, with the Chagatai Khanate, the Ilkhanate's frontier was more open and harder to defend with such static works. The Ilkhans left garrisons in that region, and often put their designated heirs in charge of Khorasan, tasked with responding to attacks by the Chagatais or the Negadari raiders from Afghanistan. Here the Ilkhanate responses were somewhat less effective, and many of the Chagatai or Negadari raiding parties escaped before the Ilkhan's troops could arrive. On rare occasions where larger-scale invasions did occur, as by the Chagatai Khan Barak in 1270, the Ilkhans responded personally in great force. Abaka Ilkhan caught Barak Khan near Herat in 1270, successfully outmaneuvering Barak and inflicting a crushing defeat upon him. The Ilkhanid army appears not only to have been much larger, better equipped and better supplied, but it was better led too, compared to the Chagatai army, which even seems to have had trouble feeding and supplying horses for its men in the dry conditions around Herat in July 1270. After Barak Khan's death, Abaka then invaded the Chagatai Khanate, a rare occurrence for him, and thoroughly sacked Bukhara, one of the chief cities of Transoxiana and the Chagatai lands. The message was clear: major attacks on the Ilkhanate would result in major retaliations. It was not until the 1300s that the Chagatai undertook larger-scale attacks on the Ilkhanate again. The success of these, too, were generally halted by effective Ilkhanate responses or Chagatai infighting. At times, the Chagatais tried to coordinate these attacks on the Ilkhanate with the Golden Horde, but the timing never quite succeeded, and the Ilkhans always managed, with some difficulty, to respond to them one by one. An attack by the Chagatai Khan Esenbuka on the Ilkhanate in 1315 was halted due to an invasion of the eastern Chagatai Khanate by Yuan dynasty troops. Border forces under Junkur and the Kipchak Guard drove deep into the Chagatai lands, seizing pastures, animals, families and cities. Fear of coordinated assaults between the Ilkhanate and Yuan dynasty against the Chagatai Khanate, and the increasing instability in the Chagatai Khanate from the late 13th...
Yeah, the Chagatai Khanate is like between these two. It really has a bad position. It's literally sandwiched having to battle both east and west. So like its position doesn't seem the most advantageous of the groups, you know?
20s onwards put an end to such efforts again. These khanates could unleash devastating warfare on each other, but each one was too powerful to be conquered.
And that's kind of the thing though, like yeah, like I said, it reminds me of the Diadochi Wars a lot, you know, everyone using the same tactics, and, you know, some people are just too, they can definitely hurt each other, but they can never fully conquer each other. It really is such a stalemate, you know? So I don't know, I really like that, that's just really cool.
The resources necessary for the task would require each khanate to leave its lengthy borders exposed. Even for the states that had the relative advantages, the Ilkhanate and the Yuan dynasty, victories were still costly, bloody affairs, and the campaigns expensive occurrences. We have many more exciting videos on the Mongols and their wars coming up, so make sure you are subscribed and press the bell button. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible.
And yeah, overall another great series by Kings and Generals, and more Mongol videos to come, my friends, so stay tuned, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye everyone.